at 7:07. Ms. Greer, can you please call the roll?
Corcoran. Alvin.
Here.
Goodfriend.
Present.
Hoda.
Here.
Klein.
Here.
Lunkins. I see her. Smith.
Here.
All right. Ms. Corcoran, Trustee Corcoran, are you on the call? Okay. So we'll move ahead with the approval of the agenda and order of business in a moment, but before that, we will recite our district mission, vision, and beliefs. And for the board members, you have our mission and vision on the card, the laminated card in front of you. The district beliefs are in the quick view tab of the meeting. So if you go to the quick view and the belief statements, they're all listed out. And why don't we start? Trustee Smith, do you want to read our mission, please?
Sure. Oak Park School's mission. Our inclusive learning community provides the best academic and social experiences by educating the whole child one at a time.
And I will read the vision: cultivating visionary leaders and compassionate citizens to be engaged in the global community. Mr. Alvin, would you like to read our first belief statement?
Oak Park Schools is committed to excellence and quality for all. We will create safe physical, emotional, cultural safety.
Trustee Goodfriend, would you like to read number 2, please?
We will create safe physical, emotional, cultural safety.
Next one.
Thank you.
We will build positive. Is that the one you want, Mr. Hoyda?
Positive, yes. Number 2.
We will build positive, productive, and supportive relationships with the community, including students, parents, and local leaders. And 2. Go ahead, that's all I've got on it.
Okay.
Well,
Trustee Klein, would you like to read number 3, please?
We'll use equitable anti-racist instruction to instill a growth mindset and help all students reach their highest potential.
And Trustee Lunkins, would you like to read number 4, please? Trustee Lunkins, you might be muted.
Hello.
I can't find it.
I can handle it.
Trustee Corcoran, are you?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, do you want to read number 4 for us, please?
No, I decline to read that, please.
All right.
I'll read it.
Ms. Trustee Smith, go ahead. You
We
want to
will
read the
prepare
last 2?
all students to be thoughtful, successful, and engaged members of the global community.
All right, and Trustee, and I'll read number 5. We will work together to responsibly maximize our resources with transparency and accountability. So thank you, everyone. I think it's helpful for us to review those things as we get started in the meeting to keep us focused. And we move on to approval of the agenda and order of business. So do any board members have questions about the agenda or items that they'd like to add to the agenda?
Move approval of the agenda as presented.
Support.
Okay, if there's no objection, we will have unanimous consent to approve the agenda. And with no objection, the agenda is approved. We move on to the consent agenda, which includes the minutes from our board meeting of February 22nd and approval of the personnel actions report. If any board member wants to remove either of those items from the consent agenda, you can let me know and we'll put it on the action agenda. Do any board members want to have any of the consent agenda items removed? Seeing none, I will move approval of the consent agenda by voice vote. So all those in favor of approving the consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. The consent agenda is approved unanimously. And we move on to reports, and we'll start with Dr. Hitchcock.
Good evening, President Hoyda, board trustees, and community. Thank you for all being here this evening. I want to start out by expressing gratitude. We have spent the last several weeks, well, last 2.5 weeks or so, since we met, preparing to return to school. And in our preparation to return, we have engaged multiple stakeholders. I'd like to start with our community partners. First, the Oakland County Health Department, Kaylee Blaney and Calandra Anderson, who have played an instrumental role in supporting us throughout the pandemic as the epidemiologist and district nurse, as well as participated in our fireside chat last week to share updated information about returning to school. Of course, Janae Scott, I know that I have recognized her before, but she just is amazing. I told Mr. Tungate that I felt like she needed a key to the city. Janae Scott is a resident in our community, and she also works for Henry Ford Health Systems, and she runs the mobile health clinic, and we have her to thank for COVID-19 testing as well as vaccination. She's been all over providing both diagnostic testing that is credible testing, as well as providing as many vaccines as possible. And each time she gets a new lot of vaccines, she gets on the email and lets me know right away. And she's so happy and gracious about supporting us. So I appreciate her as well. And this past week, we also had Rabbi Goldberg from the Hero Circle and Aaron Wallace from Stay Well Mental Health Resources join us for our version of a virtual fireside chat to talk about how we can all practice self-care at a time when there is so much uncertainty during COVID-19, and to help us make a healthy transition back to school in person. So additionally, Eric Wineclaw doesn't join us too often on these board meeting calls. So I just want to take this opportunity and thank him as well. I got a number this past week of how many meals that Eric and his staff have distributed, and they have distributed to date 750,000 meals throughout this pandemic. And when you talk about people who've been on the front line since day one, this brother Eric Wineclaw has been on the front line since day one, just doing everything possible to ensure that students and families are fed during this critical time. And we can't thank you enough for all of your support. It has just been absolutely amazing, and having an opportunity to see firsthand the production of feeding folks. I know I've seen it from the outside of all the cars and how, we're grateful that we can provide the support, but it's also kind of heart-wrenching at the same time. And many of you know, you've seen those cars lined up outside the high school on Wednesdays. But seeing inside your staff, I visited the production last week, and they're so positive, happy, pumped up, really,
Yep.
It was heartwarming to see that. So I don't know, did you want to say something, Eric?
Oh, well, it's the same thing I say every time. None of this is possible at all without the staff that you just mentioned. So it's really not me. It's really thanks to them showing up every day, despite, all the trials and tribulations everyone's had over this whole pandemic. So they really deserve the praise. I mean, I'm just happy to help tweak it here and there a little bit, but it's really them. So.
Well, I don't know about that. You're doing more than tweaking. You're doing a lot, and we can't thank you enough. You've been out there since day one, and I think you've had just a few days of a vacation. So please know that your hard work and your commitment have not gone unnoticed. You're welcome. In addition, I would like to thank the staff. I mean, we have spent this past week doing everything possible. So with our custodial staff, with Officer Cook that just joined us, with our teaching staff, teachers who've continued to teach throughout this time, as well as teachers who are serving on various committees, including the Teaching and Learning Council, for your collaboration, participation. We had many folks join us for these fireside chats and ask some really great questions, and also had people really give us some good advice in ideas. So we appreciate, you know, hearing your honest feedback during these board meetings, but we also appreciate your willingness to collaborate and share ideas with us. So our staff has been phenomenal, and we appreciate your engagement. And along that same vein, I think it's important to bring the board up to speed with where things stand right now in terms of our timeline. We had a full day of professional development on Friday. We have spent hours and hours at a rate that I am certain is unhealthy of thinking through the different types of schedules that we want to pitch to return for our return to in-person option that is coming up for students on April 5th. This past week on Friday, Cassandra Baptiste and I shot a video. Cassandra is going places. She's going to be the next Angela Bassett. Me, on the other hand, not so much, because we had a considerable amount of takes before we got this right. But we presented to our staff, our entire staff, different options for schedules for us to return on April 5th in person. And the staff had an opportunity to complete a survey that closed this afternoon. We know that some of our staff members were in a staff meeting, so we wanted to wait to share what the in-person schedule would be until tomorrow, because we promised those staff members that they would have an opportunity to share their input on the survey. So we're not going to share the schedule tonight, but what I will say that we were so grateful for is that it was a clear answer about what the right thing to do, or what the preference is. There's no right or wrong, but what our preference is in the direction. Oftentimes we can get into these really gray areas, and we were like, please let it be crystal clear. So the good thing is it's crystal clear. As soon as we give the rest of the staff this evening, we'll share this information tomorrow, and we'll all know the direction that we're headed in, and we're prepared to take the recommendation of the staff based on the survey results. I also wanted to thank Rabbi Goldberg, who was going to join us this evening with Chief Justice Bridget McCormick.
They are here.
Oh, they are here. Okay, wonderful. So I mentioned to Rabbi Goldberg, after doing a great job presenting to our staff and just his partnership, that this would be another opportunity to thank all of the folks that have been supporting the Hero Circle at the 3rd through 5th grade level in our elementary schools, as well as supporting our vision of a partnership to move forward. So I'm going to turn this over to Rabbi G to first say a few words and to introduce the Chief Justice.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hitchcock. We have been so welcomed into the Oak Park system. And in speaking with the Chief Justice, who is the co-chair of our Childhood Resilience Initiative with our own Dr. Jamie Hitchcock, it was really important for us to appear in front of you to let you know the tremendous vision of the superintendent and how that is really translating down to every level. What's unique about the Hero Circle is that it creates a culture of empowerment where every single child in the district, and that's the eventual goal, will be able to not only understand power, peace, purpose, but to go out and teach it. So with that, I'm just going to turn this over to the Chief Justice of the Michigan Supreme Court, Bridget McCormick, to say a few words so that you understand the real intimate role that community leaders are playing and how grateful we are to the Oak Park School District for this opportunity to function in the Oak Park schools.
Thank you, Rabbi G. And thank you, Dr. Hitchcock, for giving me a couple of minutes to express my gratitude to the Oak Park School Board for their partnership. And especially to Dr. Hitchcock for being a visionary leader to bring this successful, formidable empowerment program to the children of Oak Park. It is already having a significant impact in the Oak Park community, but what I'm excited about is what a model it is for so many other communities around the state, in so many other places where kids will benefit, their families will benefit, and I believe communities will benefit. You might be thinking, don't you have enough to do with running a branch of government that is like concerned with state courts? And I do have some things to do in that other part of my job. But this is really, really important to me and lives and occupies a lot of space in my head and my heart. And I am so grateful to be teaming up with Dr. Hitchcock on what I believe to be a real way to put courts out of business. Okay, that's a little bit exaggerated maybe, but I talk a lot with Rabbi G and Dr. Hitchcock about how education is upstream from courts, right? People don't go to courts usually because things are going well. They go to courts because something is not going well, sometimes worse than that. Sometimes something is traumatic. And we can heal in courts, and we try to, but we can do better if we heal upstream. And your partnership in the Heroes Circle is giving us such an opportunity to show the state and then show the world what we can accomplish. And thank you so much for that partnership. Thank you for Dr. Hitchcock's leadership. We are just full of gratitude.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know that many of the staff members on this call feel very passionate about social justice issues, so much that 3 of our trustees just attended a social justice workshop, Ms. Goodfriend, Mr. Hoyta, and Mr. Elvin. And so I am certain that they and many of us, many staff members on this call, want to help you put courts out of business, especially when it comes to the school to prison pipeline. So I believe that we have to dream big. And if at least we can change things in that particular department, I think that would give us all joy. And we really appreciate you investing in the school district at this stage to prevent students from even getting in a place where they need to see any judge other than for career ideas. So absolutely. Thank you so much. Just wondering, does anyone have questions for Rabbi G or the Chief Justice before we let them move on with their evening? I'm sure that they've heard that our meetings are riveting, but they may have some other things to work on tonight.
I would just like to
Are there any board members who have questions for Rabbi G or for Chief Justice McCormick?
I have some questions for Chief Justice McCormick about Bozzi versus Sentinel, but I don't think that now's the time.
That would put everybody to sleep, and you guys have important work to do. So.
I would just like to say thank you for your partnership. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Right. And I want to say thank you as well. And I did have an opportunity to listen and watch the fireside chat that you did, Rabbi G, with our staff, and I really appreciate that. And I know I have found the breath break that you taught our staff very helpful. In fact, today I just shared it with one of my colleagues at work, and she texted me later telling me how helpful it was to her as well. So thank you for sharing that tool with us and for bringing that inspiration.
It's a good thing that in Oak Park there's no stress, but you might have colleagues in other places who could use it.
That's right. All right, thank you.
Thank you both so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that concludes my report for this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Hitchcock. And we move on to our Chief Financial and Operations Officer, Mr. Barr.
Good evening. Just 2 items for tonight. Number one is effective tomorrow under the Business Office or Business and Finance webpage. There's a new tab titled Check Registers. All check registers will be posted there every 2 weeks, retroactive to the beginning of 2021. That's in the spirit of full transparency to the entire community so they can see every accounts payable check that this district writes. And any questions can be addressed to myself or Doreen Osterlinke. So those will be posted tomorrow. Second is an update on the May 4th, 2021 bond issue. We met with all the staff today in all of our schools to inform them of what this bond is all about for $54.5 million approximately that has no increase in the debt tax rate. The bond millage site or the bond website is active on the Oak Park Schools website. There's a tab on the ribbon on the top with many materials there, and a couple of them are still being updated. Tomorrow is the first of many community meetings. The first one tomorrow is at 6:30 p.m. and the Zoom link will be posted online, and there'll be an email and multiple communications coming out from the school district, possibly tonight or first thing tomorrow morning. And there are many meetings scheduled, informative meetings scheduled to explain this bond. This bond is really dealing with our core infrastructure in many cases. We're dealing with safety, security, mechanical, plumbing, things that are really needed in our core infrastructure of this school district. And we think that this will have a significant impact on the school district. And it's something that our students deserve, our staff deserves, and our community deserves. So again, this will be on the May 4th ballot. That is up to the community, obviously, to decide if they would like this to be approved in the school district. Again, there'll be multiple informational meetings coming up. The first one is tomorrow, and then there will be at least one every week between now and up to Election Day on May 4th. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to address them.
Thank you, Steve. Do any board members have questions for Mr. Barr? Trustee Klein and then Trustee Goodfriend.
Steve, am I correct that the millage that's being put up would not actually increase the taxes from what we're currently paying? It would just be a continuation of last times around?
Not increase the tax rate. So the tax rate stays the same from what was being paid in the current year of 2020. That's right.
And before I was a school board member, I was on a facilities committee several years ago, and there were all these massive projects. Mm-hmm. Are those still the same projects? They've just kind of become even more relevant now?
Right, and they're listed on our website in detail by building. For every school they're listed, and again, we haven't had a bond since 2008. So imagine if you didn't do anything significant in your home in the last 13 years, your roofs, your driveway, your flooring, your appliances, what have you. So that list has just gotten larger and larger and larger. And again, those listings are on the website under the 2021 bond, but that's correct. It's our needs from our assessments were approximately $125 million. The bond election is for $54.445 million, because that is what results in no tax increase compared to what was paid for what they're paying in 2020. So this does not service all of our needs, but we're hitting the most critical needs that we have to address.
Right. We've in other words, I just want to clarify. So we're not buying luxuries here. This is what's critical that needs to get done.
This is core infrastructure of this district. Correct. There's well over $10 million in mechanical work. There's about a third of our money is on plumbing and mechanical. Another third is on electrical, and the balance is on technology and other interiors type work. This is not a nice to have stuff. This is stuff that is essential infrastructure to continue running our schools, to be honest.
And the last question I have is about timing. I think in prior meetings you've mentioned that right now the bond rate is lower. So if we were to place our chins on our hands and say let's think about it for another year, we could wind up with a higher bond rate. Is that correct? Higher interest.
We would likely have a millage rate increase at that point if we waited beyond this May, or if it wasn't approved this May.
Understood. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Klein.
Not community.
Trustee Goodfriend and then Trustee Elvin.
No, Mr. Klein asked the questions I would have asked to have the community know about.
All right, thank you. Trustee Elvin.
Yes, I agree. Mr. Klein asked very poignant questions. One couple that I had as well. I just want to confirm with Mr. Barr that the link or information for tomorrow's community meeting will be on the website. Is that right?
Right. It'll be on the 2021 bond website, and it'll be prevalent right on the front page, also on the homepage of the Oak Park Schools website, and it will also be sent out through multiple communications. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Trustee Goodfriend.
What time will that be on Zoom Live?
6:30.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Dr. Hitchcock or Steve, do we have a plan for the board to have an opportunity to go back in person and look at some of those needs and kind of see what are the things, because obviously there's several stages to this, right? So we went through the preparation stage. Now we're in the stage where we're asking the community for the bond. If the community approves the bond, the board is going to have to make some decisions about how that money is spent. Is there going to be an opportunity for the board to see some of those things in the buildings and learn about some of those needs in person?
Jamie, do you want to speak to that, or would you like me to?
Sure. So as mentioned earlier, many of the needs are pretty critical. And our infrastructure needs like plumbing, electrical, things like that my husband likes to tell me about when I'm trying to make things look really pretty. He wants to talk about some of those really, important needs to keep us warm, dry, and safe. But there are a couple of areas, and one of those areas really surrounds athletic facilities. And so we're going to invite our board and community to join us at 6 p.m. on March 22nd. So that would be prior to our board meeting, to take a tour of the pool facility in particular, and then have a study session in the remainder of the meeting to have some discussion about areas that are more flexible. Whether or not we need a new roof is really, that's pretty inflexible in terms of a discussion surrounding that. But the pool or having a field house is one that we definitely need to make as a team, community members, board members, and our staff. So Monday, March 22nd at 6 p.m., we have some of our experts coming out to share some information. We'll all take a tour of the pool facility and underneath the pool, and have an opportunity to learn more information about the bond in general at the study session that will be embedded in the board meeting that evening.
I think also that day, if there's time, Dr. Hitchcock, they can even go into maybe Mr. Wills or Mr. Burnett can escort them into a mechanical room or a couple classrooms, just, since we're at the high school, and the meeting I believe is going to be at the high school that day, and show them several other things while they're on site.
Yes.
We can put a list together of those. And if you have other things the board would like to see, let us know, and we can set that up so we get that done before 7 o'clock.
Yeah. May I ask this question?
Go ahead, Trustee Smith.
Yeah, Mr. Barr, just correct me if I'm wrong. Did you not say earlier that some of these projects were detailed on one of the tabs on the
on the website under 2021 bond?
Right.
There's a high level listing of the bond projects.
Yeah.
So the proposed projects. Now they're very high level.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
They're per building, Mr. Barr. I think that's important that people know. I did read them all yesterday. Mm-hmm. So I think it's terribly important that, as well as, I'm sorry, Mr. Hoyt, I didn't ask permission to speak. I think it's really important, not just for this board, but this community to take, since we're going to be able to have some openness, some tours for the community to see. We've done that in the past, and I know Mrs. Goodfriend talks about the past, but they're the people that are buying it for us, is the community, and that's terribly important to show it. If anybody has been on Facebook this weekend, you would see all of the former students and parents who are parents of students today talking about the Oak Park swimming pool at the high school. Mm-hmm. And I think that's terribly important because their expressions are dismay. And we do know that our brown children, as well as white children, Caucasian children, yellow children, many of them do not know how to swim. It is a statistic, and there's so many drownings, and we had a facility that provided that for them. And I think it's very important when you take the time to see what Facebook is saying of members of this community now, as well as former members, and what they have learned and shown with what this pool has done, as well as the planetarium. Many people were under the impression this weekend that still the planetarium was closed. I've tried my best to make it very well known this past weekend again that we have a full functioning state-of-the-art facility in the planetarium. And by the way, when that happened, Dr. Walter Hoffman's daughter came on Facebook this weekend to talk about it and that she would like to have a tour. So I told her it would be my honor to take her once we were able to have the public to see what her dad's legacy is. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Goodfriend. And
Mrs.
I look forward to the work that you...
Can I just comment, Mr. Hoyt, on that? I just wanted to follow up. I appreciate your comments, Mrs. Goodfriend. I agree that planetarium is amazing. And it's unfortunate it's, because COVID hit, it is amazing what they have in there. And I think our budget that you're going to see in a few months will have some even updates on software to that to even make it better, because it is quite a jewel. And I'm not sure there's a better one around, especially in a public school. And I agree with you about the pool. I have no doubt. I wish it hasn't gotten dilapidated for the last 15 years. I totally agree with you. I think it's all about priorities, and we have $125 to $130 million of needs, and we'll take direction from the board where to spend that money and where it makes sense. As I told the staff today in the staff meetings, the non-negotiable is health and safety, and that is HVAC and mechanical plumbing. That is a non-negotiable that we need to replace those units first year. And I would tell you that there's nothing, and everyone nodded their head. Yep, you're right. It's too warm, it's too cold, it's not fresh enough. This is pre-COVID. But I agree with you. I mean, we have $54.5 million. We can redirect money all different ways as the board sees fit. Just realize that we have $125, $130 million in needs. And that's good.
I understand, but children have a need of their lives are valuable to
Yep,
us.
absolutely.
And that's terribly important. The other thing is, in regards to the pool, we don't know if we'd have to put up another facility instead, or be able to, I know it would be approximately $3-4 million to fix what we have. And I think that's terribly important. But the most important thing is that this board be able to take the time in a study session without any kind of action items to discuss and give direction to what we would like to see that this community wants. And that's very important. So before any decisions are made, I think that besides the mechanical and electrical, I mean, that's untouchable. Okay.
I totally 100% agree with you.
But
absolutely.
It has to be, and I would hope that you would be in town so we could meet all together.
So 100% agree with you.
Thank you.
And Trustee Goodfriend, I want to thank you for what you referenced there in terms of telling that story to the community. And I look forward to the work that you and Trustee Alvin and Trustee Lunkins will be doing on the Community Engagement and Communication Committee, because we do recognize that we need to do a better job of getting that word out there. So thank you so much. I look forward to learning more about the work you guys are doing. Trustee Alvin, did you have a question?
Not a question, but a comment, and more or less where you were headed, as a matter of fact. But just a point of, as a board, that we need to make sure that we get the word out about all the necessities and all the things that are required for this district to move forward in a good and positive way. And so, as again, what you just noted, that work will be critical for that committee, as well as critical for the entire board, to make sure that we are communicating this information to those of us who put us in this position. That's all.
Yeah. I know I share with Dr. Hitchcock, I was in a meeting last week on doing a anti-racism workshop, a series of workshops through Oakland schools. And I was in a breakout room with a staff member from another district who lives near Oak Park. And I was very proud to talk to her about some of the things she had heard about Oak Park and help her understand some of the new things. And by the time we were done, she had agreed to check it out because she has a 3-year-old and she's deciding where he's going to go to school next year. She agreed to come check us out. So I think those kinds of conversations, the kinds of conversations Trustee Goodfriend is having on Facebook, we need to have more of those and tell that story, because unfortunately, sometimes the people out there telling the story of Oak Park don't necessarily have the correct up-to-date information. So we'll move on now to our Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning, Ms. Baptiste.
Good evening, everyone. The updates that I have this evening are, one, thank you to all of our teachers and our parents, as we had parent-teacher conferences last week. And so the way that worked was the first hour of the day was parent-teacher conferences, full day of instruction, and then staff also held parent-teacher conferences for families in the evening. So I will be sharing in the board update for this Friday the parent-teacher conference rate of participation. And that is such a huge feat, to teach a full day of classes, but also engage families, and you're doing all of this over Zoom. So thank you for that. Our district professional development was on Friday. So that's following a full week of parent-teacher conferences where we engaged in COVID-19 health and safety protocols, just in time for the return to in-person instruction starting April 5th, but also our staff returning to teach in person March 15th. We engaged in social emotional learning, the implementation for our social emotional learning screeners. and social emotional learning supports to be in place for our students. And our professional learning communities where staff could engage at grade level, but also according to content area. And finally, our building principals, and in no particular order, but our building principals having the opportunity to engage with staff and share with them the plans that they have to support staff upon their return, and also students. So as you know, there was a survey that went out to all staff, and we'll be sharing more information about that tomorrow, what the results are from that. But in the afternoon, we'll have our Teaching and Learning Council, where at that point, staff, building leaders, paraprofessionals, all ancillary staff that participate on that council will also help to inform next steps. And it's been an honor to not do this in a silo and to have stakeholder engagement. And I mean, for real, what other district has been in the position to be able to engage staff in that way and really hear their voices? So, and implement their voices. So there's some next steps to come along with that. Finally, with all of this going on, we still can't lose sight of summer school programming. So that is top and heavy for the Teaching and Learning Department. While we're doing all this COVID stuff, there's like an 11th hour work of rolling up sleeves and really identifying K-12 summer school learning opportunities. And I'm very proud to say that we are in partnership with Oakland Schools, where we will have the Oakland Youth Innovation Lab housed at our high school. And while that is a program that's countywide, we have seats guaranteed for Oak Park and additional seats because we are a host community district that's participating in this. But that's one thing. Then there's our home, our actual full-on Oak Park students. What are we doing for learning, recovery, loss? What are we doing for enrichment? And what are we doing to also uphold social emotional learning and fun for our kids in this time when they do come together for summer learning? So you will be receiving, I guess you could say, a report, if you will, ideally in the next week, or not the next week, the next board meeting, more information about the highlights and the activities and the programming for summer learning. So that is the update that I have for you all this evening.
Thank you. Do any board members have questions for Ms. Baptiste? Trustee.
I have a question.
Okay, Trustee Goodfriend and then Trustee Lunkins.
Cassandra, with the summer school program, I would hope, because our youngsters have missed a year of actual in-home schooling, not being in the home, but in our building facilities, that will have a great emphasis put on subject matter. I think that's really important, so that they have the give and take in the classroom setting. I know cultural things are very important as well, but they need as much subject matter, I think, as we can give them: math, science, English, etc.
Yes, absolutely. And so what we're doing now is looking at our benchmark assessments, identifying key areas where there are gaps, keeping in mind that these assessments took place not in a school setting, keeping that in mind. And also looking at data from the past, our trend data, to then make an analysis of, okay, also even in terms of our summer curriculum and programming, what we will offer. And for those students who are rising up a grade level, it's learning loss, but also you're rising up a grade level. So what is that balance for our programming? So thank you for that. And we will definitely, I think that should be central to how we move forward with planning curriculum for summer and also in this next upcoming year.
Thank you. I agree with you.
All right, thank you. Trustee Lunkins?
Cassandra, how long is summer school going to be this year?
We anticipate 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
Unlike in the past, it's been 4 weeks. So we are really hoping, and that's also, the big thing is also staffing for summer school. Okay. But yes, 6 weeks.
Okay. What about, I know there are some students who aren't really catching on with the online learning. Is there going to be something set aside for those students to either catch up or maybe they might have to get ahead of some of the other classes going on with the information that they didn't get during the summer school.
So are you referring to the students who would not be attending summer school, like those students that opt not to?
Yes.
So I think one of the things that now what you're doing for me is you're giving me some things to really think about, like not only summer school, but for some students who just say, listen, this is it. I need a break.
And the reason why I'm saying it is because I have a grandson who just refuses to do any work online, okay? And I know he's going to be in the summer school. He's going to be required to do his learning that he needs to learn. But I'm quite sure he's not the only one that's sitting back waiting to see what summer school is going to offer him, because before you guys had the group of summer school things. You had like the chef thing, and one was I think kids had the I can't think, there was several.
Trustee Lunkins, you're muted. You're still muted.
Yeah.
Okay.
And y'all had the 5 or 6 different things for the kids to do. Are we going to do any of that?
So
are we going to stay with the program as far as getting those students where they need to be, far as telling what they need to do?
Yeah, ideally for summer school programming, I'm actually serving other districts to learn as much as I can about what are they doing. Are they having in-person options? Are they having remote options? Are they having blended between the two? And what would best serve our district with the vulnerabilities that we face? We will need not only academic, but also enrichment opportunities for students that maybe wouldn't necessarily come in for the academic, but when they participate in those cooking types of classes, now you're doing math measurement, now you're addressing ELA. So these are some of the things that we're working through and planning out. What exactly does that look like? So it's students who want enrichment, but also students who need that additional support. I don't want to say trick them, but you're learning and you're having fun and you don't even realize that you're having fun. You're so busy having fun, you don't realize that you're learning. So there's that balance of being able to offer that and address learning loss in that 6-week period. So that's a lot.
That is a lot. Some tells me 6 weeks ain't gonna be enough.
Yeah, so it's also a matter of what is it that we're learning this summer that can then be rolled into this next academic year. Just seeing the way things are turning out now with the return to learn April 5th, summer, and now also the path forward in September. Like we'll have a lot of data to help steer us in a direction of, all right, this is what we need to do for interventions. This is what we need to do for small group instruction. This is what we need to do to support our students, even social, emotionally, and after school programming for this next upcoming year.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, Trustee Klein.
Thanks, Sandra. Is there anything in the works in terms of, not even looking at the summer, but into the fall in terms of remedial programming to help kids make up that little gap that might have been lost over this year? And also, are there discussions? I hear a lot about the potential for a lost year. And the first thing I think is, maybe one answer for certain kids is just to explain it's okay to do a year again. And I don't know how that comes off, to be honest with you. It's probably the first time I've ever said it out loud. Is that crazy, or is that something that's being looked at? Is any of that practical?
So one thing I'll say with the lost year and having students make over that year again, and I guess part of it is just my own belief, my own bias or experiences, that the students who are targeted to do a year again, there's a lot of inequity behind why that is, as opposed to addressing what were the gaps that they had and what's the training and the support that teachers need to best support those kids that need additional interventions. I will say that for next year, there's a lot going on with our building principals with master scheduling in the next upcoming weeks, and even finalizing some of their schedules. And that also drives intervention periods. That drives how we do our professional learning communities, which ultimately drives our student academic success. But I'll say it's one elephant at a time. It's such a huge elephant. So first things first, let's not lose sight of summer. And what I really don't want for our district is to engage in this conversation next month or May. Like I've just been at the edge of my seat from like the end of January up until now, like we, really getting summer programming in place. Because I feel like between this year, I know there's been a lot of loss, but there's also been a lot of instructional gain. So really assessing what are the things that teachers are able to do really well, knowing that there's been a lot of interruption. As much consistency as we've had with remaining remote, there has been interruption for our students and interruption to our teachers for how they do what they do. So now when we come back in person, that's also something to consider. Then the summer and then the fall. So we're really looking at chunks of best practices from each stage of this year, plus the summer, to then drive the fall.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Dr. Hitchcock.
I think one of the things that's important to consider is that we want to do this right. We haven't even gotten our kids back in person this school year yet. And I want to make sure that we recognize that our time right now is really consumed with getting our students back and our staff back safely right now. Our next step, we're having conversations, discussions. We will engage stakeholder feedback just like we did with summer school last year, but we haven't made any concrete decisions at this point. So we're not able to really share all the ins and outs. We know that our students have a significant learning gap. They had a significant learning gap before COVID-19 started, and it's been exacerbated by COVID-19. We know that it's going to take a significant amount of time to address that gap, not only in summer school, but through interventions and supports during the upcoming school year. We'll have to be very mindful of what are concrete standards that were missed that we need to address, and what are things that may not necessarily need to be addressed, but the student can still be successful to move forward. So I would hate to get too far into the weeds about summer school or the next school year, because we're really trying desperately to make sure everything that we do when we return on April 5th is healthy and safe for our staff and all of our students. And it's not that we haven't thought about those things, but we just really feel strongly about getting this right. And then once we get them in and sort of tucked in, I like to say, then we'll move on to summer school and what our the fall looks like.
Thank you.
Trustee Elvin?
Yeah, I just am curious, and it might be Dr. Hitchcock who needs to answer, or I'm not sure if Ms. Baptiste can answer, but I'm just curious about what our plans around standardized testing is. I assume we're getting prepared for that as well.
We are.
Yeah. We don't really have a choice, as foolish as it may be. Whoops, that came out. Ms. Baptiste, maybe you want to share a bit about testing and what the thinking was in terms of the April timeline as it relates to testing.
Well, even before we knew for sure that we were federally mandated to engage in testing, we anticipated, the return should be no later than this point in time, so that students are not coming in and then that week they're testing. With the exception of our students who are English language learners, their testing window is the first window to open up. And that's now. That testing, because of that testing window closes at the beginning of April. And so this Friday, we're actually engaging with our testing coordinators across the district to discuss what some of those plans are. We've put tickets into DM Burr to get started with, you know, the testing schedule and making sure rooms are set up and cleaned properly, and that there's a schedule set up for that. Also, really making sure that our students are aware of where they're going when they go into buildings. They haven't been in the building for so long. Some of them might, if you were a rising ninth grader, you might not have ever been into the high school building. Do you know where to use the restroom? Do you know your way around? So really giving a few, I know that time is very close because we have that spring break, but giving students at least that time to enter and be in the buildings and have our pickup and drop off and transportation and various moving parts as much in place as we can. Then there's the testing schedule, which is not the same type of a schedule that you would have academically as a student. So we are taking that into consideration and working through those things even before the announcement was made, because we anticipated that it could go in that direction.
Yeah, sound like y'all got y'all hands full.
I think so. But you know what? We're holding hands together. At least there's that. Okay. Yeah, at least there's that. We're not holding hands alone.
Are you asking for parents to contribute if they can?
Now that you're, like we like to say in my office, get out of my head. My kids. That is definitely, like even a part of our stakeholder engagement, communicating with parents, this is the option that, you know, that the district is going in. They are, you know, they do have their assessment calendars to know that the testing is taking place, but communicating with our families and having, similar to the fireside chats, building leaders having meetings with parents, and also us at the district with teaching and learning department having, you know, parent engagement meetings where they're more aware of what's happening, when it's happening, and how they can support.
Thank you. I appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you. Do any other board members have questions? All right. Thank you, Ms. Baptiste. We move on to our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, Ms. Diglio.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, President Hoyda. Just a few things. Dr. Hitchcock hit on all of the training. There was over 18 hours of training, and we broke them down into district leaders and administrative assistants, February 10th, 23rd, 24th, and 25th, 12 to 3 o'clock in each one of those dates. And the principals joined us again on Friday, and I really enjoyed our time with the teaching staff. We broke that training into 2 sessions, elementary in the morning from 8 to 11, and secondary staff from 11:30 to 2:30. And in preparation of the COVID-19 preparedness training, I did share that manual with the board on Friday and lots of examples of our training. But in addition, and you've heard me talk about this before, in addition to our COVID training, we have had a lot of efforts behind just school health training without minus COVID, I guess is the best way of saying that. On Wednesday, Nurse Long and I, along with Maddie Sabbath, visited the high school, Open, Nova, Einstein, Pepper, and Key. And that's a continuation of our preparation around school health. It was really great to see, you've heard me talk about some of the items, but really great to see all of our first aid cabinets have been installed. Our medicine cabinets are still coming through delay of COVID, but our EpiPen lockers up. Each school will get 4 EpiPens. Our biohazard containers in, our sharper containers, not just in, but everything is posted. Mini ice machines for our health room, 2 beds, and curtain dividers in every isolation room, carts for every isolation room, new ADs are on their way, and much, much more. So to do those school visits with additional training that has to do with medication, distribution and collecting all of that, we continue our tours, and Nurse Long will continue going to every school, just helping to create systems, not only around COVID health systems, but around school health in general. And Ms. Baptiste started to touch base on this. In addition to all the preparation of coming back to school, we're still doing master scheduling meetings. We're preparing to look at our staffing needs. The administrators will be engaging in more cross-HumanX training. So a lot of that is continuing on in the Human Resource Department, and just really proud of our team. You hear us talk about the nurses a lot, but also Ms. Sherman and Aaliyah Cheney, who helps to keep things going forward. And then just the collaboration between the departments, all of that training, all of the PPE, all of the stocking, and getting things in the buildings and installing them exactly where we put sticky notes, to see them up in place is just a great feeling. So my hat's off to the business and operation department, teaching and learning, and of course, the leadership of Dr. Hitchcock. So that's all I have for this evening.
I have a question, Mr.
Thank you. Trustee Smith?
Yeah. Ms. Daigle, how are we doing today?
Good, thank you.
Thank you for the update. And Dr. Hitchcock, I apologize if you mentioned this. I didn't hear it mentioned. At what percentage level are we at now with our teachers being vaccinated? Excuse me. Do we have a number that we have those numbers yet?
So I don't know. Do you want to? Unfortunately, we don't have that information. We don't have an update on that information. We can't necessarily ask staff because it's related to their health.
Okay.
So it has to be anonymous. So we had to cancel our meeting on Friday that we normally have, our union meeting.
Okay.
We usually have a weekly meeting on Fridays. We had to cancel because we had the PD scheduled all day. So we will have a meeting this Friday. And Mr. Adammission had just been trying to give us a percentage. And so we will possibly have an updated percentage on Friday, but we haven't been able to really ask that information of our staff because it's related to health and it's confidential.
Okay.
However, we have made several attempts to get all of the staff members that want to be vaccinated, different connections to vaccines, to help folks that are interested in becoming vaccinated to get the vaccine. So the opportunity, I think, is there. I can't confirm how many people have actually gotten it.
I apologize if that's an intrusive question. I was just curious.
Oh, no, you're not. No, it's a good question.
It is a good question.
I just want to make sure everybody's well.
It's the same. It's a question that we have too. But, of course, we don't want to infringe on anyone's
understood
personal health information.
I know that I was on the call on Wednesday with the Oakland County epidemiologist with the Oakland County Health Department. There's a bi-weekly call for board presidents. And they told us in that meeting that every teacher who was on their Save the Spot list had, by the end of last week, will have been given an opportunity to get their first vaccine. So, and then they were actually taking the next step, which is to circle back and call people back who had registered, but either didn't show up for their meeting or didn't respond to the email or call, to make sure if someone missed a call or missed an email, that they had that opportunity again. So that was information coming from the health department.
Right. And my question kind of stemmed from, on our site, we do provide, we have the COVID-19 tab, and we do have the, the matrix that shows, where those, where we had in different schools, the different impact of positive cases. So I was just kind of curious as if we reported, as well, the teachers that, the number of teachers that may have already been vaccinated. But
if we can get an update on Friday, we will definitely let you know, what we were able to find out.
Okay.
But I haven't heard lately anyone that wants a vaccine saying that they were unable to get an appointment. So that's a really good sign.
That's a good sign. Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
Also, too, Dr. Hitchcock, I had mine yesterday.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
How are you feeling?
Well, my arm's quite sore, and that's to be expected. And I talked to the doctor, and he said, with me already having the COVID-19, the series that I had, I'm going to experience some other soreness that I may have. But my second one is scheduled for April 6th. For the second one, he said after the second one, 2 weeks after that, it should be okay. So my thing is, if I had it, everybody can get it. And I didn't want it.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions for Ms. Diglio? I just want to mention that one of the things in, hearing from our Oakland County Health Department leadership, from Kids Kicking Cancer, they've talked really about the incredible leadership that Dr. Hitchcock and Carol and Steve and Cassandra have really provided for this district over this period. They're seeing what's going on in lots of other places, and they've taken that, pointed that out. So I want to just mention that, because sometimes in these meetings we can get so caught up in some of the details that we forget to really recognize how appreciative we all can be for the leadership and the sacrifice that's being made by our leadership team, Dr. Hitchcock, Ms. Diglio, Mr. Barr, and Ms. Baptiste, and of course all of our teachers and staff and our administrators and our board members. But since it's been called out by Oakland County Health Department leadership, specifically that what Oak Park's doing, what they're recognizing on a county level, and by Kids Kicking Cancer in terms of on a more global level, what they're seeing, how Oak Park stands out, I want to mention that and thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you.
And with that, we're going to move forward to public participation. Ms. Lunkins, would you like to read the public participation, please?
Yes. Members of the audience are invited to participate in board meetings prior to the business portion of the meeting, following conclusion of reports, and prior to the adjournment of each meeting. You will be recognized by the board president and asked to give your name and address before making your comments. Please present a concise statement of your concerns. The board president may ask to limit your presentation to 3 minutes, so all those who wish to speak may have the opportunity to do so. Thank you for your cooperation. We welcome your input and your appreciation, your presence at our meetings.
Thank you, Trustee Lunkins. So if any member of the public would like to address the board, you can indicate that by typing in the chat or by raising your hand in the participants tab. A reminder that if you have questions that you'd like answered, you can talk to your building administrators, you can call our central office, and that would be a wonderful opportunity to do that. In this forum, we're seeking comments from the public to provide feedback to the board. And so it is one-way communication. We're not going to respond to any questions that are asked. The opportunity for questions is elsewhere. So if anyone has anything they want to provide to the board, please indicate so in the chat or raise your hand in the participants tab and I will call on you. Okay, Ms. Tienda. You can go ahead and unmute yourself and speak.
Thank you. My name is Monica Tienda. I live at 1012 Cloverdale Drive, Royal Oak, Michigan, and I teach 4th grade at Key Elementary. I know a lot of people have different opinions about the whole return to school, but I just have some thoughts about the plan rollout itself. You ask parents to decide on returning face-to-face or staying virtual with no plan, no decided plan at that time. And you put the onus on classroom teachers to do this. No plan, no answers, only questions, all of which should have come from the district and not from individual classrooms. And now this is the data that you want to use for face-to-face and virtual classroom numbers, with presumably no way for parents to even know what they've agreed to, let alone change their minds. And only as of last Friday, March 5th, 3:30 p.m., after a full day of professional development, only after school did you even offer a clue about what face-to-face will look like, with 2 options sent to teachers via video email. You didn't even present it to us face-to-face via Zoom. Then you asked teachers to vote between these 2 options without any discussions between the district and anyone. But if you want to hold parents accountable for decisions that they made with 0 information, and you want to hold teachers accountable for options that they were given with 0 input or consideration, you're asking for a mutiny, because there is no full transparency here. This rollout to return has been disingenuous to us, particularly us, the teacher stakeholders, who are the ones in the trenches. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? You can, again, type in the chat or raise your hand in the participants tab. All right. We don't have any action items on tonight's agenda, so we move forward to our information items. And the first one is regarding the contract renewal for our food service company. Mr. Barr, are you going to speak to that?
I am, thank you. We have 2 information items tonight. The first one is the food service management company renewal. And at the June 10th, 2019 board meeting, the board approved Chartwells as the district's food service management company for the 1920 fiscal year. What happens thereafter is the school board is required to, if they want to continue with said company, do an annual approval subsequent to getting approval from the Michigan Department of Education. We have been, as you've heard earlier, beyond satisfied with the work performed by Chartwells and Eric Weinklein. I mean, 750,000 meals, guys. I mean, 1 meal sometimes a lot, 2 meals a lot. I mean, he's putting together 750,000 meals, and he can say he's not doing it. He's leading the effort. So I'm not sure there's anyone in the state that's done anything close to that, including the district of Detroit. I just don't think so. We have worked with Chartwells. We have sent the paperwork in to the Michigan Department of Education, who is required to approve it prior to bringing it to the school board for approval. We received that approval from them on February 16th, 2021. We are recommending the extension of Chartwells as the food service management company for the 2021-22 fiscal year, which we would bring back to you in 2 weeks for your approval at your March 22nd board meeting. If you have any questions or you want to count up to 750,000 with Eric like they do all the time, because they have to submit these claims, we're more than happy to answer your questions.
Do any board members have questions about the Chartwells contract? All right, we move on to information item B, which is the Plant Moran Cressa contract.
Thank you. Give me 1 second just to grab my report. Okay, in your board packet is a lot of information on this agenda item. In one of your squares is Paul Wills from Plant Moran Cressa, who is a partner, and you have seen Paul at multiple meetings over the last year. With the upcoming bond issue on May 4th of 2021, and we also have construction through our sinking fund, we expect that we'll have at least $57 million of various construction and renovation projects, likely over the next 7 years. That's assuming if the bond proposal passes. This is no small order. And in my opinion, and from my past experience, these projects and over these years require and deserve the services of an owner's representative. In my opinion, the leader in providing owner's rep services for Michigan K-12 school districts was Plant Moran Cressa. They have performed well in my last 2 employers, and they have done well for us in Oak Park schools. Enclosed in your packet is the a 3-phase engagement letter, of which we engaged them back in March a year ago for 2 of the smaller phases, One dealt with the facility utilization, which was part of what led to the combination of Oak Park High School and the Oak Park Freshman Academy, or Freshman Institute, excuse me. And the second, which was much more thorough, was the capital planning or facility assessment leading up to the December approval by the Michigan Department of Treasury for the ballot language that the board put on in late January, which we're seeking approval by the community on May 4th. They were prominent in doing all of this. Phase 3 of their engagement letter, which we'll go through in a moment, is for owners' representative services. A detailed description and listing of these services begins on page A3 of the engagement letter. I'm going to, before I go through what that looks like, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to ask Paul, and this is also in your handouts, titled Role of an Owner's Rep. This is new for Oak Park Schools. This would be a very large bond. So I would like Paul to walk us through, if you can see Paul somewhere, what an owner's rep is and what they're not. And then we can get into any questions if that's okay. So Paul, I'm going to start right here and I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Barr, and good evening, board members, administrators. Again, thank you for the opportunity to continue working with Oak Park Public Schools on this exciting bond program. So again, owner's rep, what you have to think of is, again, Dr. Hitchcock, Mr. Barr, Mr. Burnett, they have their normal, I don't want to say 8 to 5 jobs, but basically their job is running a school district, educating kids. But when you take on a large capital program, everything that you look at on the orange left-hand side there, relative to strategic planning, how do you want to project the overall program? What types of delivery systems do you need? Understanding the owner's budgets, schedules, how to procure the design team, the construction team. So these are 18 things that are designated by the American Institute of Architects or your contracts that would be proposed by legal counsel. One of the roles that Plant Moran Crest has done for numerous districts across the state, including a lot of your neighbors here in Oakland County, as well as Wayne County, et cetera, is we act as that extension of your facilities and finance teams, if you will. So we're really looking out as a fiduciary for Oak Park Schools. So our services are actually paid for out of bond dollars, not out of general fund dollars. And what we've been able to do over the last 25 years is really provide a positive return on investment. So Mr. Barr, if you go to the next slide. So one of the things we've done, if you look at that orange or owner's bubble, if you will, facilities and finance are, again, contractually obligated to track those things that are off on the right-hand side. Oftentimes, school districts will allocate those to the architect or to the construction manager, where there's really that no independent lens of really mitigating your risk, avoiding your risk, also helping you transfer that risk. Because at the end of the day, this is a $55, $56, $57 million bond. There's a time frame to it. And as we know, once you sell those bond dollars, that's the amount of money that you can spend. You can't spend any more. We're hoping that through an efficient run program like we've done with other districts, that there would be some other dollars available at the end of the project to potentially take on some of those large capital programs that are part of that overall larger capital need relative to the district's facilities going forward. So these are some different variations. So again, with Oak Park Schools taking the lead, we've become that extension, helping you really understand what the architect is drawing in a timely fashion. So again, looking at design standards for the district, also helping you get the general contractor on board, in this case with the subcontractors underneath there. Another option delivery available is what's known as a construction manager as a constructor. So it's very similar to a general contractor, except you're getting pre-construction services. And I'll give you a great example. Mr. Barr mentioned, I believe some of the board members mentioned, is heating systems and air conditioning systems are very, very important. One of the things we're doing with a lot of our districts right now is we're actually pre-purchasing those unit ventilators over a 4, 5, or 6 year period and locking in today's price, knowing that you're going to basically replace a lot of the unit ventilators throughout your facility. So we're able to leverage that buying power that Oak Park Schools would have if successful upon bond passage and really pass those savings on to the district. So at the end of the day, this is one of those formats where an early construction management package may be, let's say, mechanicals or roofing systems going forward. Next slide. Similar to a construction manager as a constructor. I think it's one more, Mr. Barr. There we go. There's a construction manager as an advisor. Some of this may parlay into particular projects that are either union sensitive or prevailing wage sensitive. Again, the state of Michigan has gotten away from that relative to the right of work to state. On the last slide we have on the organizations is what I think the district's been done before, like for instance, particular parking lots. You may hire a civil engineer or a design engineer. You then actually get a testing firm to really do the material testing and then go right to that roofing or that paving contractor. And again, from a Plant Moran Cressa standpoint, we are really that extension of your facilities and finance team to take on the large construction programs themselves. So some of the qualifications, if you will, is really that front-end strategic planning. Again, we know your bonds are going to be issued in a series. So again, working with the board and administrative team, what projects should go first? Is there some buying power to do things, let's say horizontally? Like, should we have a roofing package district-wide for the entire district? Or do you go building by building, specifically, let's say from roof all the way down to flooring? So there's a couple different implementation strategies after the bond does pass. We call these the wheels. So as Mr. Barr mentioned, the first 2 phases of our engagement working with the district over the last year were really the strategic planning. It's the why, it's the what. We do appreciate the opportunity to be part of that educational program development. Again, looking at how you want to deliver PK through adult services, understanding your budgets and schedules and milestones. Again, that was part of the pre-qualification application process, which you see on the last bullet. So right now the strategic plan is completed. It's really up to the voters and the residents of Oak Park Schools. And once that takes place, these other 4 wheels of progress really take into place in terms of getting the team on board, helping through design, construction, and most importantly, making sure your buildings are started up properly and you have the right documents for closeout. So again, looking at a clean financial audit as well as construction documents going forward. So again, even though I'm an architect by background, I've been with the firm for 20 years, our fiduciary is really to become an extension of your facilities and finance team. We've actually done this for over $3 billion of K-12 districts around the state, obviously a heavy concentration here in Southeast Michigan. Really, our job is to help educate you relative to capital planning. So again, understanding the design process, the bidding process, construction, that really meets your goals and objectives for the bond itself. Next slide. So again, these are some of our other clients. If you think of the city of Royal Oak, we just completed the police station program. It's part of the $100 million new city hall, police station, parking deck, a new office tower. Again, very similar to Oak Park Schools. That was a 0 millage increase to the residents of Royal Oak. We're currently working with Farmington Schools, Detroit Public Schools, Novi Schools, Birmingham Bloomfield Schools. So again, we're just very excited to continue working with Oak Park Schools and open up to any questions I think you have relative to what an owner's rep is, and then we can get into the engagement letter if needed.
So they were also the owner's rep on many other projects in your packet, including Little Caesars Arena. I think we've all heard of that, and other areas in District Detroit, the Detroit Medical Center, the Illich School of Business, and so on and so forth. They're prominent, whether it's in schools, corporate, municipal, you name it. And they've been very good for Oak Park Schools in the 13 or 14 months that we have been working with them. Owner's representative services are a service. Services do not require competitive bidding per state law. Services do not require bidding per Oak Park School District policy. However, we may. Nothing restricts it, but nothing requires it. I have a confidential attorney-client privileged legal opinion from True Law Firm confirming what I just stated, and I'd be happy to share that with any board member who'd like to see that. We have negotiated a fee of 2.25% of the projects that we are asking for Plant Moran Cressa to support through this approximate 7 years. That fee works out to be about $15,200 per month, which if you look at other clients they list and their fee structure, whether they were bid or not bid, is extremely reasonable. Again, this is a project that's lasting 7 years, not 3 or 4 years. So my recommendation, again, there's much material in your packet, is that at the next meeting that Plant Moran Cressa has hired as the owner's rep, subject to passage of the bond. If the bond doesn't pass, we wouldn't have an owner's rep. Then why do it now? Because we want to get ready so when that bond passes, and they will start working on this after March 22nd if they're approved, start having an RFP ready for architects or analyzing them, construction managers. What I heard today from all our staff meetings was, how fast can we see these changes? Well, the faster we get our team in place, a professional team, is the sooner we'll get in, the quicker we'll get in changes to our buildings, because they're starving for change. They're starving for change, no matter what the change is. So that is why we're bringing this to you tonight. So we'll be ahead of the game when it's time, if the bond passes, we can get a kickstart right away. If anyone has any questions, in the also in your packet is what an engagement letter looks like, which shows phases 1, 2, and 3, and it's much more details than what Mr. Wills went over, but you can see a lot of, over like 7 or 8 pages of what their responsibility is and what the district, does also.
Mr. Barr.
Go ahead, Trustee Lunkins.
You said something at the beginning of the meeting, you said 2.2 what?
2.25%, Ms. Lunkins, as a percentage of the construction projects they would be involved in or managing. So we wouldn't have them managing technology or furniture and equipment, but really anything that's construction related, which is obviously a great majority of this bond.
Okay. So you saying that you're not including technology?
We're looking at it just for construction type things. We would probably have a technology consultant, and just like we'd have an architect, and we don't think we would need the owner's rep to oversee that, nor any related furniture. So it'd really be, again, most of this bond, probably 90% of it is construction, if not more than 90%.
Okay, so this is going to be similar to what we have now, where our guys are confronting with Oakland schools?
No, this is not the same. This is really, the way I would explain this, Ms. Lunkins, because I've worked with firms like this for several years, is there are eyes and ears, our experts, our professionals, almost writing sidecar, with me, with the district, and helping us get the best services we can, whether it's architects or construction managers or the construction of a project or paving a parking lot. And their experience is a lot more than my experience or any business manager, to be honest. You can speak to, I was a client, and you can speak to neighboring districts or not too far away, like Warren Consolidated, Birmingham, City of Royal Oak, Farmington Schools, many of them that are listed in your packet. And we've proven that they can come and actually save us money that typically exceeds any kind of fee they would charge a district. The fee that we have in here that's proposed is included in the bond budget. So we planned a certain percentage in our bond budget when we were putting together the $54.5 million. So that fee is included in the project costs already. And if we don't do it, then I'm just going to suggest for these size projects, you really need a owner's representative. And my suggestion and recommendation is Plant Moran Cressa.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Trustee Corcoran and then Trustee Goodfriend.
The question that I have for Mr. Barr is, why do we have just a single bid? Why is it not more bids?
Well, we didn't do a bid yet, Ms. Corcoran. We're more than welcome to do a bid. It just takes a couple of months to go through the process. We've proven that bidding, and we know who the leader in this area is by far from many districts that have either bid it or not bid it. And we believe, number one, you're not required to bid this. As I stated, I have a legal opinion on that. Just like we didn't bid the other services, you're not required to bid on an ongoing basis. But again, we're more than willing to do that if it's something the board desires to do. It's nothing that our policy requires, nor does state law require it. But we proved from our negotiation with them that our fee of about $15,000 a month is more than competitive with other districts that are securing their services.
Okay. I know Trustee Goodfriend and then Trustee Klein, but for Dr. Hitchcock, did you have something you wanted to say?
I do. Just to add to what Mr. Barr has said, Plant Moran Cressa, they're really experts in this field. And as you know, just from tonight's board meeting, with the number of issues that we are trying to tackle right now, we have return to school, we have summer school, we have what school is going to look like when we return. We have a bond happening. We have several different projects that are happening, and we need experts that we know are proven in this field to do the work. They did the facility assessment, they did the facility utilization, their data and input contributed to our ability to consolidate the 9th grade to the high school with ease. They are extremely responsive in terms of anything that we've asked them to do. They were partners with us in the whole Treasury application, which was, you know, a very unnerving experience. You know, I think they bring a spirit of professionalism, withedness, and know-how to this bond work that doesn't currently exist in our school district, and that we don't have the capacity and the bandwidth right now to manage independently. I am familiar with Plant Moran Cressa in that they have been a part of projects in at least 2 other districts that I've worked with previously. And they're experts in the field. And so I can't imagine at this point going through an exhaustive process for a bid for someone that we're not familiar with, that we're not sure if they're going to be able to do this work or what their work has been in the past, just to go through the motions to do that. You know, I'm giving them a ringing endorsement and making a recommendation myself. And I would, you know, not necessarily, I wouldn't do that if I wasn't familiar with their work and what they have been able to accomplish in the past.
Trustee Goodfriend, and then Trustee
high efficiency particulate air filters.
Pardon?
Trustee Goodfriend, and then Trustee Klein, and then Trustee Corcoran. If you have a question, you can go after that.
I have several of them and several comments if you'd allow me the time, Mr. Hoyda. I did read this package completely. I think it's our responsibility to read it. And I have been involved with 2 other bond issues within this district. One, and we say replacing roofs. It's just approximately 10 years since the roofs were all done, other than the section at the high school over the swimming pool. Those were all, and Mr. Hoyda, you're aware of this because you were on the board at the time as well. They're all new. They were all new roofs at the time. Is it saying, one, that we're going to do a tear off and put all new on? And what kind of a warranty did we have from the ones approximately 10 years ago? It was a 2008 bond issue, but it was approximately 2010 before the installations that were begun.
Shut up.
It's a 25-year warranty, by the way, on those.
Okay, so that's something to talk about and consider within that, because 25 years has still got another 15 years. And are you talking, or are they talking? I know who Plant Moran Cressa is. I'm aware of them. They have a good reputation, but I think too, we have to make our own decisions as a board and place our comments and our decisions within the realm of Dr. Hitchcock and Mr. Barr, and then we all will come to an agreement on it. I'm just not willing to just give a carte blanche. I'm just not willing to do it. So that's one thing. I want to know what we're going to be doing about tear-offs on the roofs. That's all the buildings were done. All of them, new. Second of all, in regards to a construction company, I think it's terribly important that the board be involved with the interviewing of applicants as the construction company. and not at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 10 o'clock in the morning, but evening hours where the community as well as the board can meet. We all have jobs, I would assume. I do, so I consider all of us that work for the board to be as a second job. So I think that's very important. We have to certainly be well educated and be able to ask our questions. So the selection of a construction company, I'm not willing to give carte blanche. I'm just not willing to. I think it's very important. It may be carte blanche in the end, but the board has to be a part of this decision-making process. That's one thing. Then subcontractors. What would they be using for doing with subcontractors if we have a contractor that's going to be doing the work? What would you do? What would you need a subcontractor for? We had this before. I'm familiar. So it's not something that's new to me.
If I can address those real quick, I'll just start with that. This bond does not include roof tear-offs because, like you said, they're 10, 12 years old. So this bond does not include roof tear-offs. So that's nowhere in the facility assessment for anything significant like that. Plant Moran Crest is not a construction company. They're an owner's representative, but we will be hiring a construction manager and an architectural/engineering firm, to accompany it. That was shown on one of those slides. So they are not really a construction company, but the construction manager, depending on the model, will obviously have many subcontractors. If you're going to do a building, you're going to have 30 to 35 subcontractors for all the different trades. They work under a construction manager that the board hires, and they report to the school district and they report to Plant Moran Crest, who then advises the school district and the Board of Education. So we will definitely have subcontractors on every job when you have a bond this significant. This is not a small bond issue. This is a large bond issue for what we're describing. So subcontractors, every job will have subcontractors, absolutely.
Okay. Since it's not a tear off on those roofs, then we're not saying new roofs, correct?
No, we're not talking new roofs. They have 25-year warranties. We will have some patchwork in certain places. That we just did 3 patch jobs over at the high school a few months ago.
Yes, I remember that.
Yep, just a few months ago. But no, these are not, we're not tearing these off.
Weather, but it's not brand new. So we're still working on the original new roofings for the warranty. Is that correct?
The last ones that were put in, that's correct.
Okay. And you know the name of the company that would give the warranties that they have guaranteed the board at that time of the 2008?
Yeah, okay. Mr. Burnett has that on record in all of our files. Absolutely.
I think that's really important because I think it's up to the board to hear these things. We have many new members of this board, and this is the first time that they're ever have had experience in a public facility such as the Board of Education. So it's a as far as I'm concerned, this is something that is important to work with Dr. Hitchcock, Mr. Barr, and the board together and do discussions, not having an action item in 2 weeks. Okay.
I just want.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Klein.
Gosh.
Did you call me?
I just had Trustee Klein and then Trustee Corcoran.
All right, Mr. Barr, it's been brought up that potentially we would look at other vendors for this role. But based on what we see in this report, it looks like Plant Moran is pretty much the universal choice in large-scale K-12 projects. But just humor me, who else is out there?
I don't remember all the names. I want to say there's Brailsford and Dunlevy. Paul, are they still in business?
Yes, actually there are. There's a group called the Concord Group. There's a group called PMA. There's a group called CB Richard Ellis. Those are kind of the ones that would bring both a finance and facilities component to it, because again, this is a large haul for both the facilities and finance team. Those are typically the firms that we go up against. So again, I think in that sheet that Mr. Barr showed you, there's some districts that had asterisks by them that had gone through the RFP process. Again, Dr. Hitchcock and Mr. Barr are very good negotiators. If you look at our monthly proposed fees, they're well within our normal standards, if you will, for our monthly fees. And so at the end of the day, those are like the 3 or 4 firms that we typically go up against if there's an RFP type process.
I understand.
Yep.
And I don't know how much this is a question, but Mr. Bart, just looking at this, does it make sense that, here we have Plant Moran that both you and Dr. Hitchcock have a lot of experience with, and obviously they have very deep experience with our districts as well, that it would make sense to go with the safe and known candidate as opposed to, like, we don't get this $57 million in a do-over if it doesn't come out right. Is that accurate? Would you agree with that?
I'd say there's partially that, and partially they already know Oak Park because they've walked through just about every square foot of this district over the last year doing our facility assessment, starting back in February through COVID, and COVID's still here obviously, and all the way up through December with our qualified bond app. So, I mean, they know the district. Do they have an advantage? Absolutely, because they've been here for the last year. Have I had good experience with them? We did a RFP process in the city of Farmington Hills for a large project to turn Farmington Hills Harrison into a recreation center. And there wasn't even a close second on the interview process. And we did something similar in 2014 in Novi schools, and there wasn't a close second, which is why you're seeing on the document I gave you, the memorandum from them, that many districts are not proceeding with RFPs because they're knowing they can negotiate a fee that's fair to them and fair to Plant Moran Cressa and makes sense.
You said the letter's RFP, that's a request for proposal, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so that was when we're saying bidding, and our RFP and bid is the same idea?
Yeah, you can consider them the same for what we're discussing, yeah. Yes, and again, I'm more than happy to share with the board. It's an attorney-client privilege document, so I didn't want to put it on board books, but I'm more than happy to share that with any board members like to see it.
Yeah, that's not what I was getting. It seems to me like this is the kind of thing where you've actually done this many times. You have bid out other projects, and these guys come out on top. So why go through the process again? Is that
we kind of want to get a head start, and we could obviously bid it. We would, it would take us 2 months ish by the time we bid it, maybe 3 months.
Behind the 8 ball.
It's behind the 8 ball. And people can say, "Why didn't you do it 3 months ago?" Well, we've been a little bit busy trying to get back to school. When every month you think you're back to school, and then you stop. So we've been a little bit preoccupied, but it would put us off a little bit. Yeah, we can do whatever the board desires. Obviously, will we end up in the same place? You never know. You never know where we're going to end up, right?
Of course. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you. Is it Paul? Sorry.
I just wanted to say that the state law for school codes requires consecutive bids.
That's Ms. Corporate, I'll be happy to share a legal opinion with you from True Law Firm, but services are not required by school law, and I'd be happy to share that with you. Nor does school board policy. It is required for over about $25,000 for bidding of construction or goods. For example, you're buying materials, but services are not required by law to be bid. And again, I'll share, Jamie can share it with you later this week with the whole board, the attorney-client privilege letter from True Law Firm. That's why you see all these school districts that are not bidding it. Otherwise, they'd be violating the law also.
And I will share, I also read through the entire package and reached out to some colleagues on other school boards that were listed as working with Plant Moran Cressa. And I'll just share with the board one of the emails I got back, which I found very reassuring. You'll be amazed at their work and how beautiful your after will be. They're very transparent and will report to you everything and will walk you throughout the process. You want to make sure that you get top quality products. So I found that feedback to be very helpful, specifically in terms of the transparency and walking the board through the process, because I think that's something that's very important, especially for our district, that we value very much, is being involved in that decision making and not writing carte blanche, as Trustee Goodfriend mentioned. Are there any other questions from the board on this information item? All right, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, board. Thanks, administrators.
And we'll move on. We have two more items on the information that I wanted to talk about. One is, so the first one is, I'm sorry, I'm getting background. So the first one is returning to in-person meetings. Dr. Hitchcock, do you want to talk about that while I mute myself until this noise goes away?
Sure. So we got the okay from the governor to return to in-person meetings. And so after a discussion with Menachem, we thought to be in lockstep with our staff members that are being asked to return in person. And just because I think there's a certain level of collegial collaboration that we can have when we're all in a space together, making these tough decisions, especially with the partnership in our next meeting of an actual tour in person. We decided that we would share with you tonight that we would like to return in person for the March 22nd meeting. As you know, we'll have an opportunity for a tour ahead of time, but our meetings are going to be held at Oak Park High School in the auditorium to provide a significant amount of social distancing. But we also learned, Menachem, and let me know when you want me to stop, but we also learned that if there are any board members that are unable to meet in person, that you know, there are a few different reasons why you would be permitted to.
Sorry, Dr. So let me jump in there.
Okay.
So it's important for us to make a couple of distinctions. So the governor has removed the restriction on public meetings. So we are allowed to meet in person in March. In April, the Open Meetings Act kicks back in as it was changed by the legislature a few months ago. And what that means is, starting in April, we will be required to meet in person, and we will no longer be able to have remote meetings either like this or like we did before COVID, where if there was a board member who was out of town or unable to attend a meeting, they could join in remotely. Under the Open Meetings Act, as it's been amended, every board member has to attend the meeting in person. Now, as Dr. Hitchcock said, there are a couple of exceptions to that. One is if there's a specific medical issue or disability that prevents someone from being able to make it to a meeting. I think another one is if someone's serving in combat, and then if there's a declared emergency. So the March meeting we can do in person. Starting in April, we must meet in person. With that being said, we still want to make sure that we're being careful about safety, and that we're being consistent with the policies that are the policies and practices that are in place throughout the district. The room where we usually meet as a board would not be able to accommodate those things. So that's why we're going to be moving the meetings into a bigger room. However, because we're going to be moving into a bigger room that's outside of the boardroom, it also means that technologically, we're not going to have the same capability in terms of broadcasting the meeting live that we were able to do from the boardroom. So there are going to be some changes. We're still going to record the meetings. We're still going to broadcast them and make them available afterwards. But in order to accommodate the needs that we have, our technology is going to be different, which means it's going to look a little bit different than perhaps what we're used to still for a little while. I still expect as board members, we're all going to be respectful of social distancing and masking, consistent with the policies and practices that we're doing throughout the rest of the district in our meetings. The public will be welcome to join us at our live meetings in the high school, and I expect that all 68 people who are on this meeting at the beginning will join us, or as many that possibly can. We'd love to see you there as well. And so I wanted to just lay out that plan. And obviously, as you know, all these things are moving targets. So as things change, we'll adjust to them and keep everyone updated on that. But do any board members have questions or concerns about us returning to in-person meetings?
Yeah. So did you, President Hoyter?
Go ahead, Trustee.
Did you just say that you would hope that all 68 members that are participants in this meeting would show up to that meeting? Did you just say that?
Yeah, he did.
Absolutely. We'll have room in the auditorium to accommodate all 68 people with social distancing and masking. And we welcome everyone.
Okay.
Does any other board members have questions? Trustee Lunkins, did you have a question?
Yes, I have a question. You know from my medical history that I'm not in the right stage as far as walking. Can I continue to have or what do I have to do?
So let's talk about that, and we can find out from our representation exactly how that will work and figure out both the legal questions and the technical questions together.
Okay, because I was under the impression as long as I was still under the doctor that I can still have myself Zoom at any meeting that we have.
So that let's figure that out together in consultation. Like I said, we want to make sure we figure out all the legal and technical aspects and medical aspects of it. And I don't want you to share your medical information in this public meeting. So let's have that conversation offline.
Okay.
Yeah, I do have a concern about the amount of people that we're allowing into this new forum that reluctantly some of us don't want to attend in person, but I do really have a problem with that. Is there a limitation of amount of people that we can allow in? I'm not trying to invite this to be one of those what do they call the super spreader events at our meetings. So just
of course we're going to follow the guidelines from the state health department, the county health department, the CDC to make sure that we're not having any super spreader events.
Yeah. Okay.
But as a public body, we are required to allow the public to attend our public meetings and participate in our public meetings.
So do we control the amount of occupancy levels?
Yeah.
Again, and that's why if we have, again, by moving it to the high school, we're going to be able to allow for more room so that we can accommodate more people and be more.
High school holds almost 1,000.
Yeah.
Well, 1,000 without social distancing.
That's right.
Yeah.
68
like
wouldn't be 1,000.
50 is too much to me, so I don't. I got a problem with it. So.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from board members about returning to meeting in person?
We're still going to do the 15 minutes beforehand?
I certainly hope so. We can do it in person. And again, at the next meeting, we're going to be meeting at 6 o'clock to tour the building and have a discussion about some of the bond projects. But certainly following after that, I hope we continue to meet, to continue to bond, because we've been enjoying that, and we found that to be helping with the relationship and between the 8-member leadership team of the board and the superintendent. So that's certainly my intent, but I'm open to input from everyone. All right, the next item is. I'm sorry, what's that, Trustee Lunkin?
Are you saying, in other words, I have to be here in person?
No, I didn't say that. I said that why don't you and I get in touch offline so that we can understand more about your medical needs and what we're able to do technically and what we're able to do legally, and we can try to figure that out together rather than talking in front of the whole community about your particular medical situation. I want to respect your privacy.
Okay. I understand.
Okay?
Okay.
All right. So the next item is regarding the board's code of ethics. And I wanted to have, all the board members have the code of ethics in front of them. I want to encourage us all as board members to review that on a regular basis. There are a couple things I want to bring attention to that we need to really be mindful of, and especially with the community in the audience, I want the community to hear that also, because these are the commitments that we've made as a board, both to work better together and also to support the needs of our students and our staff and all of the stakeholders in the district. And one thing is the idea that we operate as a board, meaning there's no one in the district that works for me. There's no one in the district that works for Al or Yosef or Maxine or Claudette or Dawn. The superintendent reports to the board as a whole. And then the rest of the staff reports to the superintendent. And so when people in the community have concerns and they come to us as board members, what we are usually doing and what we should be doing and what we will continue to do is refer it to proper channels, because the moment we as board members try to interfere in operations of the district, it not only undermines the ability for this district to operate, but none of us have any authority on our own. Right. If I call up the superintendent and ask her to do something, she's not allowed to listen to what I have to say. She's not allowed to do what I tell her to do. I'm not her boss. Only if I have 3 other board members together with me and we vote in an open meeting to take action, that's the instruction that our staff will follow. And so it's a reminder as board members, please remember, when you do have concerns, when you do have issues, you can contact the superintendent with questions. Please do not contact staff. Do not call the superintendent and give instructions. Do not call staff and give them instructions, because they cannot listen to that legally. They can't do what we tell them to do because we don't have the authority. And it's also a violation of our code of ethics as a board that we've all agreed to. In addition, and we've had this conversation, in a certain way, as board members, we're the least powerful people in the district. Because when our friend has an issue, if we have a child in the district and they have an issue, as a parent, as a friend, we can show up at public comment, we can make comments, we can call up and advocate. But as a board member, we never have that board member hat off. And so if we want to be out there being advocates, if we want to be out there speaking up for those things, that's important, but then we can't be on the board. On the board, we can only operate together as a unit of 7 in open meetings with a majority according to our policies and bylaws. And so I know that all of our board members agree with that. We've had this discussion many times. I wanted to have that conversation together publicly so that everyone understands if you call a board member and say, this thing happened in my child's class last week and I'm unhappy about it, or this staff member, you know, said this to me and I'm unhappy about it. As board members, there's very little we can do. There are proper channels for pursuing those things, and those are depending on your role. And as board members, we're happy to direct you to the proper channels, but we will not get involved in things that violate our ethics and that undermine the operations of our district.
Great.
Do any board members have questions about that?
The proper channel is you take it, you tell the person that's having the problem, they have to take it to the superintendent. That's our responsibility, to tell them what they have to do, and that's take it to the superintendent. We can't take it to the principal. That's up to them. But if they're so dissatisfied, whatever it is, the superintendent has to handle it. And that's all the information that we should ever give to them, ever.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board on that? Okay. We move on to communications and addenda. And at this time, I'm going to open the floor again to the community. If there's anyone from the community that would like to provide additional feedback to the board or comments, please feel free to raise your hand in the participants tab or to indicate in the chat that you'd like to speak, and I will call on you and you can make comments at this time. And I don't see anything. So before we get to board addenda, I do want to mention two communications. Together with Trustee Elvin and Dr. Hitchcock, I attended the equity workshop, or the social contract workshop from Oakland Schools, from the Oakland County School Board Association on a couple weeks ago on Wednesday night. It was presented by MASB and West Bloomfield School District, and they described this process of coming together as a board to develop a social contract among the board of what are the expectations we have of each other, how do we operate, how do we hold each other accountable. I found the workshop to be really helpful to learn how things are being done in other districts and what we can do to improve our process. One of the things now that we're able to meet in person, I hope we'll be able to schedule an opportunity for a board retreat. And Trustee Klein was at that workshop too. Thank you, Trustee Klein, for reminding me of that. I'm looking forward for all of us to be able to get together in person. I know that I've met Mr. Elvin once in person. A lot of us haven't had an opportunity to meet each other since we've been remote for a year now. So I'm looking forward to that opportunity, and I hope that that social contract will be a part of it. I also look forward possibly maybe as including in a part of that, having our students come in and teach us the breath break and the things they've been learning through the Kids Kicking Cancer program and the Hero Circle, so that we can engage some of those things too. Do any of the other people who were there want to add anything in terms of the experience of that workshop? All right. The other workshop that I attended together with Dr. Hitchcock and Trustee Elvin and Trustee Goodfriend was the equity workshop held by Oakland County School Board Association last Wednesday night with Dr. Jay Marks. And Dr. Marks presented on issues of equity. It was also very enlightening, really a challenging workshop to think about, to really challenge us as board members to think about what are the things that we're doing that impact issues of equity and what are the things we can do differently? How can we dismantle some of these processes that have been hurting so many of our students for so long? How can we put in place new anti-racist policies and practices? And so I look forward also to working together on some ideas to move that forward. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee of the Oakland County School Board Association, which I chair, had made a recommendation to the Oakland County School Board Association board that we launched a 21-day equity challenge at that meeting. Unfortunately, the board decided that they wanted to table that for right now, since so many boards have so much going on. They're going to look at it again for possibly to do that in the fall. But I look forward to sharing that experience with everyone, because I found it to really be educational for me and a thoughtful experience for me. Anyone else who attended that meeting want to share anything with the other board members or with the community about it?
I would,
Trustee
if I could, I would.
Trustee Goodfriend and then Trustee Elvin.
I found it very helpful, and it personally to me, because I came from a school system as a child where my sister and I were of the only religion in the city. And I feel and I understand, and I think it's important that we share this feelings of sadness and hurt when we're what is the word I'm trying to search for? The point of the matter is, the gentleman that spoke was absolutely superb, because he took it into relation to families, to the hurts that we carry from generation to generation. And for me, it was going home to the hurts that my sister and I shared all those years by being denied or ridiculed, okay? And I think that's very important. He was also, and I can't remember because I'm home watching television all the time, that's about all I can do. He was on another program, I think it was Sunday morning, speaking about equity again, and he's outstanding. And I think all of us should be able to experience something of this nature. And if we can bring that into our community to share with our community when we're able to have gatherings again, I think it would be very helpful for our students, for our families.
Thank you. Trustee Elvin?
Yes, I found both of those sessions that you mentioned to be very impactful and enlightening. It was good to see some of our fellow board members and our superintendent on both of those, as a matter of fact. And it's always good to see if we can take some of the key takeaways away and apply them here in our district. So kudos to those who were there for those both of those sessions. Thanks.
That's right.
Trustee Klein?
Yeah, as far as I was not at the second session, but the first session, it was interesting because we were put together with people from a lot of other districts, and it has been a rough year. That's very cliche to say, and you come off of this year going, oh my, some of the difficult times that we face, and then to hear what some of the other people were saying, it was almost comforting, and I wanted to share that with everybody who's on this call. Like, we were not, we had a lot of real shiny parts, a lot of silver linings, a lot of people who showed up as heroes in dark times and difficult situations. And, there were also, sometimes where things got a little heated and maybe it was a little less comfortable on these meetings. And then you hear about, one of the things that sticks out is some of the other board members were saying that they had meetings that lasted till 2-3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I remember one time when we were on a separate private chat, information session until after midnight, but that's it. Most of our meetings are 3-4 hours, and I'm going like, wow. And then you hear about these other ones that are saying that they're constantly till 11 o'clock at night or later, and the kind of arguments. So it was helpful for me because I'm going like, man, I'm constantly, how can we be better? How can we be better? And then I hear it, I go, okay, we're doing fairly good. I always knew we had a great bunch, but also to see that we're weathering it, not just okay, we made it through, but we actually have done very well. And I think that everybody gets should pat themselves on the back, and we should continue to do well and get stronger as a board.
And we're going to continue to work to get better. And just to be clear, Trustee Klein, when you said we were on a private session until after midnight. I believe you were referring to a closed session.
Yes.
Right? We don't want, of course, any meetings of the board are open to the public other than specific closed sessions for specific reasons. And other than that, we do not meet together to discuss anything related to district policy or decisions. Did anyone else want to speak about any of those items? I do want to share two other items with the board. One is that at the OCSBA meeting, they announced that MASB had announced the results of their board of directors election, and Birgit McQuiston from Lake Orion has been elected to represent this region at MASB board of directors. There is going to be an election for OCSBA's board of directors in at their April dinner meeting, which I believe is the third Wednesday in April. You should be getting information about that. And also, if you attended either of those sessions and wanted more of those materials, or if you didn't attend those sessions and want some of those materials, they were sent out by OCSBA. So please check your email because those to take advantage. I believe at least one of them was recorded, and a lot of the materials were shared. The other item I wanted to share was that Trustee Elvin shared with me right before the meeting, and this was also announced at the meeting, that Oak Park has been selected as the winner of a scholarship to the National School Board Association Federal Advocacy Conference, which usually is in February in DC. This year it's going to be in June online. But because of our consistent attendance at the Government Relations Committee meeting, we are one of the districts that received the scholarship from OCSBA. It's, I believe, June 8th through the 11th. So certainly if there are any board members, it's during the week and it's during the day. So I know there are some board members who won't be able to participate. But if you're interested in attending that, please feel free to let me know. And then if we do have a board member that wants to attend, that scholarship from the OCSBA will cover the cost for one board member. But of course, if other board members want to attend, we can accommodate. We can do that through our budget, because professional development, we believe that professional development is important for this board. And with that, I'll ask if there are any other communications or addenda from members of the board. Trustee Goodfriend.
I have a question, and it goes back to the report from Plant Moran and Crescent, and are we going to set aside an action item until further discussion?
Yes, it's being brought for action at our next meeting.
Are we going to set it aside? That's what I ask.
I'm not sure I understand what you mean. It's being brought for action at our next.
I understand that, but we also have the option that we can still have some more discussion prior. It's just one issue to have a study session on that for the board before, and delay the action item.
If the board would like to do that, we can do that. And you can let me know. Right now it's on the agenda for our next meeting. If the board decides that they want to table that, we can decide that at that meeting too and have further discussion.
So you want to put it at, and then table if the decision is made to table it? Is that what you're saying?
Like any action item that's brought in front of the board can choose to vote yes, can choose to vote no, and can choose to table it.
Okay, at the next meeting, at the next board meeting is what you're saying?
Yes.
Thank you.
Of course, yes. Of course, Trustee Goodfriend, if you'd like to bring a motion now to do that, we can vote on it. We can vote on it now if you wanted to do that.
I'd prefer that the board members take it and digest it first before we do that. Okay. I think
Okay,
there are some reasons why and to get more information, because we have not had this information, and if there's questions, then we can meet with Mr. Barr and Dr. Hitchcock at that time for just that subject matter, not any other action items. But if that's tabled, then board members can make that decision at the next meeting.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any other communications or addenda for members of the board? All right, anything from the administration?
I hate to call out one particular teacher, but I want to make sure that there wasn't any confusion. And Cindy Young has been here throughout the evening, and we had discussed recognizing the Hero Circle and the work that has gone on in Cindy's class, and her really being a spearhead for Kids Kicking Cancer in the Hero Circle at Pepper, and then continuing that spirit throughout our other 2 elementary schools. And because we have so much happening, I cannot stop thinking about, oh my goodness, I hope that we didn't screw this up and have you stay on this call. So even though we're going to recognize you again at a future date, I want to recognize you right now, not only for your work with the Hero Circle, but Cindy, I have always felt a significant warmth with Cindy. She welcomed me into her classroom. Probably, within the first month or so or couple months that I had been on the job. And all that I hear about her, especially from Mr. Haley, is so positive. He talks about how most of her students are attending her classes on a regular basis. I believe that Hero Circle, as well as that warmth that she extended to me in the short time that I've been in the district, are a part of why her kids keep coming back so frequently. Last year, she was ready to tutor kids as frequently as possible. So I know that she goes above and beyond, and I haven't been able to focus thinking about, oh my goodness, I hope we didn't screw that up. So even though we'll have you back, I want to recognize you right now in this call with all of your peers, with the board, and with the community, that what you do does not go unnoticed, and we truly, truly appreciate you. So thank you.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Anything else from the administration?
I was going to say, Dr. Hitchcock.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you tell Cindy I still have her turtle?
Cindy,
yes.
What turtle? What's that all about?
She gave this turtle to my youngest daughter in 5th grade.
She's now 34.
She's now married, has one, and one on the way.
I'm 34.
And I still have this turtle.
And the turtle's still alive?
The turtle is still alive.
And kicking any butts.
And that was 1999, I think.
Yep.
Wow.
Was.
So there are 2 lessons there. That Cindy goes above and beyond for her students, and to never accept an animal from Cindy Young, because it will live forever. You'll be taking care of it forever.
Yes, I'd like to say that firsthand as well. Mrs. Young is outstanding. And I know that firsthand because I was able to, I was allowed to have her as one of my son's teachers, and she does her due diligence. And thank you so much, Miss Young.
But you didn't get a turtle.
I didn't get a turtle.
But I got this turtle when Miss Young worked at Lessinger. And Lessinger is now, what, the adult education now?
Alternative ed.
But I got it when she was at Lessinger.
All right. So with that, even though Trustee Klein would like at least another 4 hours to this meeting, I'm going to call a motion to adjourn if there's no objection.
Second.
Trustee Lunkins, can you tell us about our next board meeting, please?
Our next board meeting will be held on March 22nd at 7 p.m.
Our regular meeting will be at 7, preceded by a special meeting at 6, and the meeting will be, as of now, at Oak Park High School. Looking forward to seeing everyone. And if there's no objection, we will adjourn at 9:27.
Support.
We're meeting at the high school?
Thanks, everybody.
At the high school, yes, Trustee Lunkins.
Okay, I gotta get a ride to the high school.
See you guys later.
All right, thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
I got a ride.
Okay, great. Have a good night.